My mother slid a checkbook across the dinner table toward my sister and smiled. "Anything you need for your big day, sweetheart?" "Anything." I opened my mouth to ask about my own wedding. My father didn't even look at me. "We're not throwing money at a backyard circus, Lenora. Let's be honest, nobody's even excited about yours." My sister smirked. The table laughed softly. That was 3 months before my wedding day. And 3 months before the bank manager walked through the door and changed everything. My name is Lenora. I'm 34 years old. I work as a logistics coordinator at a mid-sized shipping company in Ohio. It's not glamorous. There are no spotlights or stages, but it's steady and it demands precision, and I'm good at it. I've always been good at the things nobody claps for. My younger sister, Bridget, is 29. She was the pageant girl, the sorority star, the one my parents framed photos of and brought up at every dinner party. She got engaged to a man named Grant from one of those families everyone in town knows by last name. I was the other daughter, the plain one, the responsible one who paid her own way through community college while my parents funded Bridget's full ride without blinking. My fiancé, Dean, is an electrician. He's kind, honest, and steady. My parents never respected him. They never respected my choice to love him either. And I wasn't the daughter they bragged about at dinner parties. I didn't have the degree on the wall or the ring that impressed the neighbors. But I had something they never thought to look for. A mind that never stopped planning, even when they never stopped doubting. My whole life, I've been compared, dismissed, and financially overlooked by my own family. Every milestone I reached was met with silence. Every one of Bridget's was met with applause. And for a long time, and I let that silence convince me I was less. But silence can do something else too. It can sharpen you. If you've ever been the one in your family who did everything right but still got overlooked, subscribe. I see you. Drop your story in the comments because I'm reading every single one. And if you already feel this one in your chest, click that hype button. Let's get into it. It started at a brunch. My mother called it a joint wedding planning get-together, which already felt like a performance. She'd reserved a table at a restaurant downtown, ordered mimosas before we arrived, and had a folder with color-coded tabs sitting next to her plate. The moment we sat down, she opened the folder and beamed at Bridget. They'd set aside $45,000 for Bridget's wedding, a lakefront estate for the venue, imported flowers, a designer dress, a live band flown in from Nashville. And my mother listed each detail like she was reading from a dream journal she'd been keeping for years. Bridget squeezed Grant's arm and whispered, "I told you they'd come through." I sat there, doing the math in my head, waiting for my turn. When my mother closed the folder, I spoke up. I asked what had been set aside for my wedding. It was 8 weeks after Bridget's. Same year, same parents. The table went quiet. My mother looked at my father. He cleared his throat and said, "We figured you and Dean would handle yours. You've always been independent." I pressed harder. I asked for a number. My mother looked down at her mimosa and finally said, "Honey, we put aside $1,500. We just thought your wedding would be simpler. You said you liked simple." I never said that. Not once. I felt the air leave my chest. Bridget jumped in quickly, voice sweet as syrup. "Lenora, you literally said you didn't care about a big wedding. I don't make this awkward." My mother added quietly, "It's not that we don't love you. It's just, people are coming to Bridget's wedding. Important people. Yours is more intimate." My father leaned back and finished it. "We're not wasting money on a wedding nobody's going to remember." I looked around the table. Not one person defended me. Dean found my hand under the table and held it tight. That was the only warmth I felt in that room. 2 weeks later, and I was at the house picking up a box of old photos when I heard my mother on the phone with my aunt. She didn't know I was in the hallway. She was explaining how they'd refinanced part of their home equity to cover Bridget's wedding costs. They had gone into debt. Not for both daughters, for one. They gambled their financial future on Bridget's big day and handed me pocket change with a smile. They didn't just choose her. They gambled their future on her and told me I wasn't worth the risk. The betrayals didn't stop at the brunch. They stacked, one on top of the other like bricks in a wall designed to keep me small. The first one came quietly. My mother took Bridget dress shopping at a high-end bridal boutique 2 towns over. I wasn't invited, I wasn't told. I found out the way most people find out things now, through a screen. Bridget posted a carousel of photos on Instagram, her in a veil, my mother dabbing tears. The caption read, "Mom knows best," with a pink heart emoji. Mom and I stared at it for a long time. Then I called my mother. I asked why I wasn't included. Her voice didn't even hesitate. "You wouldn't have liked those dresses anyway. They're not your style." She said it like it was a fact, like she knew me better than I knew myself. I bought my own dress 2 weeks later at a consignment shop on the edge of town. I went alone. The woman at the register told me I looked beautiful. She was the only one who said it. The second betrayal was worse because it was calculated. I'd put together a guest list of about 80 people, mostly family and a few close friends. But over the following weeks, the RSVPs started coming back as declines, one after another. Cousins I'd grown up with, aunts who used to braid my hair. I couldn't understand it until my cousin Tara called me. She told me what my mother had been saying to relatives. "Lenora's thing is very small and casual. Don't feel obligated to come. Save your energy for Bridget's reception." My mother had quietly campaigned against my wedding. My guest list shrank from 80 to 34 people. When I confronted her, she didn't flinch. "I didn't say don't come. I said it was casual. People made their own choices, Lenora. Stop being so sensitive." The third betrayal was the most public. My parents hosted Bridget's engagement party at a rented hall with catered food and a jazz trio in the corner. It smelled like gardenias and expensive perfume. My father stood up to give a toast. He talked about Bridget and Grant for nearly 10 minutes. He called them the couple we always dreamed of raising. He talked about legacy and pride and everything he saw in their future. He never said my name, not once. I was sitting at a table 6 feet from him. After the toast, a family friend approached my father and asked when my celebration was. He chuckled and said, "Oh, Lenora's keeping it low-key." "Oh, you know her. She doesn't need all the fuss." Laughter rippled through the group. I smiled through it. My hands were shaking under the table, but I kept them there, pressed flat against my knees, because I refused to let them see the damage. That night, I didn't cry. I sat in my car in the parking lot with the engine off. The only sound was the ticking of the dashboard clock and my own breathing. I pulled a notebook from the glove compartment and started writing. Mondine sat beside me in the passenger seat, quiet, trusting me completely. I didn't explain, I just wrote, and after a few minutes, I said it out loud. "They think I'm small. I'm going to let them keep thinking that." There was something my family didn't know about me. Something I never told them because they never asked. For the last 3 years, I'd been managing logistics for my company's biggest regional account. The client contact for that account was a woman named Mrs. Carolyn Voss. She was a retired bank executive, sharp and elegant, the kind of woman who could silence a boardroom just by sitting up straighter. After retiring, she'd taken a seat on the board of the local credit union. The same credit union where my parents held their mortgage and their home equity line. I never name-dropped this connection. I never used it to impress anyone or gain an advantage. But over 3 years of working together, Mrs. Voss had seen how I operated. She'd watched me solve problems at 2 in the morning. She'd seen me catch errors that would have cost her company thousands. We started meeting for coffee once a month, and eventually she learned about my family. She never judged, but she said something once that I held on to like a rope in deep water. "You remind me of myself at your age. The world bets against quiet women. They always lose that bet." What my parents didn't know was that the woman they'd have to sit across from at the bank, the one who held the paperwork on their refinanced home, already knew my name, and she already knew what they'd done. I hadn't asked her for anything. Not yet. But there was a moment coming. The kind that doesn't need shouting. It just needs the right person walking through the right door at the right time. I didn't plan for Mrs. Voss to get involved. It happened because I'm human, and even the strongest walls crack eventually. During one of our regular coffee meetings at the small cafe near the office, she asked me how wedding planning was going. I opened my mouth to say fine, but my voice broke instead. I told her everything. the $1,500, the dress shopping I wasn't invited to, the guest list my mother had quietly dismantled, the toast that erased me. I wasn't asking for help. I was just tired of carrying it alone. Mrs. Voss listened without interrupting. She stirred her coffee slowly and let me finish. Then she set the spoon down and said, "Lenora, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I am going to tell you what I know." And what I know is that people who take out home equity loans to fund a wedding they can't afford usually end up sitting across from someone like me. And when they do, the truth tends to come out. She didn't promise anything improper. She didn't offer to bend rules or pull strings. She just looked me in the eyes and said, "Oh, if you want to hold your wedding with dignity, I'd like to help. Not with money, with presence. Let me be there." Meanwhile, something beautiful was happening on Dean's side. His mother, a warm and no-nonsense woman who smelled like cinnamon and always had her hands busy, quietly rallied Dean's family. They pooled their money together. They upgraded our venue from a backyard to a gorgeous community garden with string lights threaded through old oak trees, handmade centerpieces, and homemade food prepared by people who actually loved us. It wasn't $45,000. It was $4,200 and pure love. Bridget's wedding went off in spectacular fashion a few weeks later. The lakefront, the imported flowers, the designer, everything. My parents basked in every compliment like sunlight. Afterward, my mother called me. Her voice was light, almost breezy. "I hope you're not expecting anything close to that. Just keep your expectations realistic." "Honey." Then, the week before my wedding, I overheard my father on speakerphone with a relative. He didn't know I was nearby. He laughed and said, "Lenora's little thing will be over in an hour. Then we can all move on." I didn't react. I simply pulled out my phone and texted Mrs. Voss. She replied that same evening, "I'll be there Saturday, and Lenora, I'm bringing something your parents need to see." Saturday came. The community garden was glowing. White string lights hung between the oaks like low stars. The air smelled like fresh rosemary and warm bread from the tables Dean's mother had spent 2 days preparing. Every chair was filled. Dean's family, his coworkers, our real friends, 34 people who wanted to be there. My parents arrived late. My mother adjusted her scarf and looked around the garden like she was inspecting a yard sale. My father leaned over and whispered to her, "This is what she chose over asking for help?" She nodded. They sat in the back row. The ceremony was beautiful. Not expensive, not extravagant. Beautiful because it was real. Dean's vows made people cry. He talked about the nights I'd sit at the kitchen table planning and organizing, and how he knew even then that I was building something nobody else could see. My vows were steady. I didn't shake. I talked about choosing love that doesn't perform, love that just stays. At the reception, my father stood up with a glass and began a toast. It was generic, slightly condescending, something about wishing the couple well in their simple life together. He was mid-sentence when the garden gate opened. Mrs. Carolyn Voss walked in. She was poised, impeccably dressed, and unmistakable. My father stopped talking. He recognized her immediately. She was the woman from the credit union, the one reviewing refinanced accounts, the one who held their paperwork. His face drained of color. "Mrs." Voss didn't cause a scene. She walked to me first. She hugged me and handed me a card. Then she turned to my parents and spoke calmly. "I just want you to know, the woman whose wedding you called a waste, she's the most respected professional I work with. She's the reason my company stayed with her firm, and she never once asked me for a thing." Then she stepped closer, lowered her voice so only they could hear. "I also know exactly how your home equity was restructured, and I know what it was used for. I'll be reviewing that file next Tuesday. I'd encourage honesty when we sit down." The room didn't hear that part, but my parents did. My mother's champagne glass trembled in her hand. My father sat down without finishing his toast. Bridget looked around, confused, and tried to laugh it off. "Who even is that woman?" I didn't answer. I walked to the front, took the microphone, and looked at the people who had chosen to be there. "I want to thank everyone who showed up. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. That's what love looks like. It doesn't come with a price tag. It shows up." I looked at my parents. A long, calm look. "I hope one day you understand that." The crowd clapped. Dean kissed me, and from the back of the garden, Mrs. Voss raised her glass. After the wedding, things unraveled for my parents the way quiet things do, slowly and then all at once. They were called in for a review of their home equity account at the credit union. Mrs. Voss didn't punish them. She didn't need to. The review itself exposed the truth. They had misrepresented the purpose of the refinancing on their paperwork. The money was supposed to be for home repairs. Instead, it funded a $45,000 wedding. They faced a restructuring penalty and a significant hit to their credit score. Bridget's husband, Grant, started pulling back. But once he realized the family's finances weren't what they appeared to be, the shine wore off fast. Bridget called me for the first time in years, crying into the phone. I listened, but I didn't rescue her. My parents never formally apologized, but a few weeks later, a handwritten note arrived in my mailbox from my mother. It said, "I think we got it wrong." I read it sitting on the porch, then I folded it, put it in a drawer, and didn't respond. Dean and I moved forward. Strong, peaceful, me unbothered. They spent $45,000 trying to prove which daughter was worth more, but worth was never something they could buy, and it was never something they could take from me. If your family ever made you feel like your milestones didn't matter, like your joy wasn't worth investing in, I want to hear from you. Drop your story in the comments. You'd be surprised how many people in this community have been exactly where you are. Yet your moment matters, even if they never clapped for it. Click Hype to help this story reach others who need it. And if someone you love needs to hear this tonight, send it to them. You might be the only person who ever does. If this story stayed with you, don't leave without subscribing. Every week, I share stories about people who were underestimated, overlooked, and counted out, and how they proved everyone wrong. Hit the bell so you never miss one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong.